collections. We're going to talk about collections today. This is the last of all the units that we're going to go over in this class. The end of the semester is rapidly approaching. So collections are a way of grouping together multiple values under a single variable name. This is the technical description of how you do a collection, sometimes called, more commonly called arrays. We're going to talk about my cars first. I have a 5-car garage, and I park my cars in my garages. I have Lightning McQueen. I put in my first garage. I put a Ferrari in the second garage, the Batmobile Tumbler in the third garage, a green, I think it's a Fiat, and then a Dodge in my fifth car in the fifth garage. When I'm having my servants park the cars in the garage.
Is Lightning McQueen one of your servants?
No. Lightning McQueen's one of my cars. When I have my servants park the cars in my garage, I will tell them where I want that car parked. Only one car can park in any given garage. I can't have 2 cars parked in a single garage. All of my garages are single-car garages. They only store 1 car. And so I will instruct my servants, Jeeves, and I'll say, hey, I want my Ferrari parked in the second garage. They'll salute and go to work and move cars out of the way to put the car in there that's been requested to be put in there. Parking cars in garages is the same thing as an array. An array is where you set aside. Normally when I create a single variable or an integer variable, I can store one and only one number in there, right? It might be a very large number, but it's a single whole number. If I want to put a different number in there, it overwrites or replaces the number that's already there. An array is the same thing, but you're just simply saying instead of storing 1, I'm storing, in this case, 5 of the same thing. In this case, I'm storing a car. So this is an array of type car. Replace the word car with string or int or bool or button, things that we know already. So I'm saying I'm creating a variable called myCars that is a car array, and it's equal to an array of 5 slots or 5 storage locations or 5 storage units. Think of however you want to, but it's like storage units. And my first garage is known as garage 0. It's kind of like my address on my house or something like this, but the first one is always 0. The second one is 1, and so on and so forth. So I have 5 slots here, so if I try to use something that said, I want to put a car in my car's index. This is called the index or sub. You read this, my car sub 0 or my car sub 1. If I want to put it in my car sub 10, the compiler, the computer is going to say, you only allocated 5 slots and you're trying to put it in a slot that's number 10? I'm sorry, that does not exist. The same if I said my car's 5, my car's 5 goes off the end here and is in unallocated space. You did not allocate, you did not build a garage, you did not create a storage unit for something out there. You only said for 5 things, and you're trying to go out to the 6th location. And so I can put my cars in all the same places. Don't worry about that warning. Now crashes. So if I create my cars, and I say there's 5 slots, and I try to put a car in my car slot 5, well, this says that I can only put it in slot 0 through 4, because that's the 5 slots, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This would cause a crash. Or if I go something less than 0, that would cause a crash. It would compile, but when you ran it, it would crash and look like this. That's what your code would look like. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how it works. So let's say I'm writing a simple program to store 5 passwords. And I have 5 different variables called password 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are just normal variables like we've done today. And so I say password 1 is equal to 1, password 2 is equal to 2, password 3 is equal to 3, 4, and 5. And so in reality, these 5 statements here that are allocating the space are really doing something like this. It's creating 5 storage slots, and they're named password 1, password 2, so on and so forth. Instead, I can do it in a much cleaner way and say, hey, I've got a string array called passwords. And I'm creating passwords to be 5 storage slots for 5 strings. I can only store strings in there, but there are 5 strings that I can store in there. And so if I want to put password, different words or strings in there, I just do it this way, saying password slot 0, password slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. So I have created the same thing that I did before, but in a much more elegant way and a much more reusable way. Reusable in that, first off, I can reference them by integer numbers. Slot 0 stores the string 1, and so on and so forth. And you can, later on, we're going to show you how using loops and arrays go together very, very nicely. So here's a piece of sample code to kind of familiar. Here I'm creating an integer array called values. And I say the integer array values has 5 integer storage locations. Now I'm creating a for loop. And I'm saying I is starting out at 0, while I is less than 5. Each time I'm going to increment it by 1. So the first time through, it's going to be values slot 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. So slot 0, we're going to work through this. So when I say values, I've created a values array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 5 storage slots. They're storing integers. And I starts out at 0. So I starts out at 0. And so I say slot 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. So I'm storing a 1 in that slot. Come around, increment I by 1. So it's now 1. I is still less than 5. So now I say slot 1 is equal to 1 plus 1. See how that works? This little piece of code is going to be very important to you for the assignment. You might take a mental picture or something. Add 1 to I. I is now 2. 2 is less than 5, so slot 2 is equal to 2 plus 1. And I can just telegraph out how that's going to go. See how that worked? We've got a loop married with a collection or an array. Makes them very powerful together. That's why we introduced loops first before we introduced arrays. Any questions on how this works? Everybody's quiet. So, I erased it too soon. Okay, put it back up here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they store values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is values. Now we're going to say answer is equal to 0. Now can you guess what this is going to do before we actually walk through it? Just glancing at it. It's going to go through, the loop is going to go from 0 through 4. I is less than 5, so 0 through 4. And it's going to add in all of the slots into answer. So it's going to add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. This is referencing, this is saying, get me the value out of the values array at slot I. I starts out at 0, so it says, get me the values sub-0 item, which is 1, added into answer. Come around, get me the values at I, which is now 1. So the 1 slot, which adds 2 in. So it's going to be 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. So at the end, answer is going to be the value of 15. Did you see how that worked? Huh? Say it a little louder. It just added everything together. This is an example that's showing you how to put values into the array. And this is an example showing you how to get values out of the array. I'm looking at your eyes, seeing if you're getting it. Okay. Before we go to the card game, we're going to go take a look at the worksheet. Go ahead and pull out the worksheet if you don't already have it. Todd.
Random question, but could you, pretty easily make a chessboard on
So the question is, can you pretty easily create a chessboard in Visual Studio? The answer is yes. Today we're teaching you about an array that is a single list of values. You can also do a matrix using arrays, also known as a two-dimensional array. There's information out on the class website about that. I am happy to talk with you about that, but that might just blow people's minds right now. Don't want that to happen. Okay, good question. So we have an integer array called list. It doesn't show it, but this was created saying int array, call it list, equals new int array size 6. Okay, that's this declared this. Separately, it was filled in previously. So now it's saying, hey, what is the value that's stored in list array slot 0? 5, right? Slot 0 stores a 5. Slot 2 stores 42. Now this is saying take the value that's in slot 3. Slot 3 is a 1. Slot 4 is a 10. Add those two together. See how this is working? Now we add a little twist on it. We say I is equal to 4. Now we're saying give me list sub I. Well, 4 is here for I, so list slot 4 is 10. Making sense? So what's this one then? So you said who? So list, and inside the square brackets, I plus 1. So I plus 1 is 5. So list sub 5 is, did you see how that worked? Right? So inside here, I plus 1, I is 4, plus 1 is 5. So now we're saying list slot 5. Whew. This one variation on the same theme, list sub I. So slot 4 is 10 plus 1, it's 11. Almost feels like we're doing binary. So this one, you just have to pull it apart one piece at a time. List slot 3 is a 1. So all of this becomes a 1. Now list slot 1 is 17. Good? Kosher? Making sense? Giving you all of the answers. So this one gets to be a little bit tricky, but you just pull apart one. We're creating an array of 10 integers. Okay? So we're going to say something like, I'm creating an integer array. I'm calling it A. And I want 10 integers. So that's 10 storage slots, right? An array of 5 strings. Same thing, only it's 5 and it's string instead of int. So I said create 10 slots. They're referenced using the numbers 0 through 9. Okay. Get the value of the 4th item of an array named names. So if I'm getting, so I'm going to reference it by saying names. 3 is the 4th item, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's name sub 3. This one's similar, only a different array name. E, get the value of the item at index 7 in the list array. Okay, well, index 7 is exactly what you'd think. It's just 7. F, I'm going to scroll this up. Boop, 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 boop. No, this is off. Is this making sense? F, the value of an item at index I in the list array. Okay, well, that's the list array, index I. That's straightforward. Assign, now we're going to a little bit different. Assign a value of 42 to the 6th item of the values array. So what's the 6th item of the values array? So 5, slot 5 is equal to 42. Right? We're assigning 42 into the 6th slot of the values array. To be a complete statement, yes, but I'm not that picky on this worksheet. The rest of these should be pretty straightforward. Any other questions about this side of the page? No questions? Speak now or we'll go on. Oh. This little guy is put over here as a help to you. So I'm creating a variable called list2. It's an integer array. It has 6 slots. Ta-da! List2, 6 slots. I'm saying in slot 0, we're going to assign the value 1. In slot 1, I'm going to put the value 3. In slot 2, I'm putting the value 5. Easy so far? Now we say I is equal to 3. And then we say, hey, if I is less than 6, yeah, 3 is less than 6, we're going to come in here. Whew, okay. I is 3, so we're saying we're going to put something in slot 3. This is going to be going into slot 3. So this is I minus 1, so this is 2. So slot 2, which is a 5, add 1 to it. You see how we did that? Then we add 1 to I, so the 3 changes to a 4. And then we come back up to the top of our while loop, and we say, is I less than 6? Yep, 4 is less than 6. So list 2 sub 4, because I is 4, gets what's in slot 3 added 1. So it takes what's in slot 3, which is a 6, adds 1 to it, and stores it in slot 4. Add 1 to I, so I changes to be a 5. Then we say list 2 sub I is 5, is assigned list 2 sub 5 minus 1 is 4, so what's in slot 4, add 1 to it, put it in slot 5. Increment I by 1, make it a 6. 6 is no longer less than 6, we're done. Did that make sense? Now this says, write the code to create an array of 100 integers and assign the values from 1 to 100 to the items in that array. Remember that one slide that I said, take note of this slide, it's going to be important for the assignment. It's also important for this question. Do you want me to go back to that slide? So this is creating an integer array of size 5. Your worksheet is saying it needs to be how many slots? 100. And you're going to be assigning values 1 through 100 into those 100 slots. This is assigning values 1 through 5 to the 5 slots. You can see how that might work. Any questions? Are we ready to go on to the assignment? I'll move it to the side. Everybody okay? Before you leave today, please turn in your worksheet. I'll create a space up here for that. Let's talk about the assignment for a second. The assignment is a card game. And with the card game, you're guessing if the next card is higher or lower, and you score points if you guess right. Okay? It's not terribly exciting, but it teaches the concept. Okay? When you start the program, it's going to tell you which card you're on. It says you're on card 1 of 20. What card am I really on? I'm really on, underneath the covers, I'm on card 0. But no one thinks of it that way when you're playing cards. Here's the first card, here's the second card of 52 or whatever. So while I'm displaying the card that's in slot 0, I'm really saying, hey, you're on the first card. It tells me what my score is when I begin. It displays the current card number, and then it says, guess, is the next card higher or lower? If the cards are numbered 1 through 20, which that's what they are, my deck of cards is 1 through 20, I'm pretty, in this case when it's a 4, I'm pretty good at guessing that the next card is probably higher. Not guaranteed, but it's probably higher. So I'm going to guess higher. And it told me, it said, you're correct, and it gave me a point. And then it displayed the next card. Asked me the same question again. Is the next card higher or lower? I'm going to guess higher, which is probably foolish. And it says, you were incorrect. It moved to the next card. Notice that this card number is changing each time. The card display is changing each time. My score did not go up because I was incorrect. Getting it so far? So I'm just going to hit higher for a bunch of times when I get to card number 19. So there's only one more card now. I've scored 9 points so far along the way, and I'm making my final guess because it's going to display the final card now, and there's no more next card to display. So I'm going to guess higher. It told me whether I was right or wrong. This is important for finishing the game. It told me if I was right or wrong, and it told me that the game is over, and it disabled these buttons. If I was correct, it should have given me one more point. But you get the idea. A lot of you are going to be tempted to display game over right here. You'll lose points because I need to know, was I correct or incorrect on the last card? And you need to make sure that if I was correct on the last card, you give me a point. And you need to disable the buttons on the last, after you display the 20th card, which is slot 19. Any questions on how this functions? So looking at this, you can see that there's a bunch of text blocks, a couple buttons, and that's about it. Now, one thing that you might be interested in is this little square here. That square is called a border. You don't have to put a border on there, but you can put a border and then you can put a text block inside the border if you want. That's up to you. But the key elements are you need to tell me card X of Y, X of 20. You need to display which card it is. You need to have two buttons, and you need to be telling me if I made it correct or not. And at the end of the game, tell me game over, and you need to tell me the score along the way, including right when I start. If I start the program and it says score and it says nothing there, you'll lose some points. I want to know, I assume I'm starting with the score of 0. What other tricks are there to this? When your deck of cards, so there's a couple things in the class on Friday. We're going to go over this. Yeah. Creating your deck of cards is just like question 4 on your worksheet. Just like question 4. It's like question 4. It doesn't differ from question 4 other than how many cards are in your deck. 20, not 100. Your deck of cards has one of each number. You're not going to have 2 number 4s or 3 number 5s or something like that. You're going to have the numbers 1 through 20. We'll talk later about how to shuffle your deck of cards randomly. We'll talk about that on Friday, hopefully. But creating your deck of cards is probably going to be a global variable. It's probably going to be an integer variable that looks amazingly like this. And instead of a 5 here, it's going to have a 20 here. And maybe instead of values, you might call it deck or cards or whatever you want to call it. And then this will be the same, other than instead of a 5 there, that's going to be a 20. That is the code to create your deck of cards. This line will be a global line. And this loop is going to be inside the code where you first, the code that's run when your program starts up. It's the main window right after initialize component. You might put something like that there. I'll stop talking. I'll let you get working. Create your project. Give it an intelligent name, maybe card game, or Inagata Davida if you're Gavin. And start getting all of the controls laid out and named, and then wire your higher and lower buttons. This program can go very quickly. Raise your hand if you have questions.